Howdy there folks, it's Geist, bringing you another Destiny 2 video. Today's video is going to be a bit of gameplay, sort of mixed in with a bit of a rant on the state of bows and scout rifles in Crucible. Now, scouts haven't really been in the meta since Forsaken launched, and bows have never really been meta, which coincidentally also happens to be around the same time, but both of these are our two longest range precision primaries in the Crucible and in general, and they've always felt a little underwhelming and a bit underpowered. Scouts can shine here and there, as can bows, or really just one bow in my opinion. And of course, in the hands of a skilled player or someone who knows what they're doing with these weapons, you can of course succeed or do well. But that doesn't mean that they're meta. It doesn't mean that they're overpowered. It doesn't mean that they can really duel as effectively as some of our other primaries in the game. And this is just sort of a video ranting on why that is. We're going to start off with the bows, which are the meme primaries of the Crucible. Now, there's a lot of different bows that you can use in the game, obviously, but really, as far as I'm concerned, PvP-wise, there is only one bow that is viable, and that is the Monarch. Now, people are going to claim, oh, you can do great with Wishender, you can do great with Tikus. That's awesome. You can do great with any bow. You can have a good game with any of them. But as far as overall consistency, the Monarch is the only one that really brings anything special to the table. Now, you're going to wonder why I'm sitting here playing with Wishender in the video. I was just kind of messing around. I wanted to give another exotic a chance besides the Monarch. And props for my amazing aim with it, by the way. You're going to see a good bit of that. I'm very used to the Monarch. That's the bow that I've pretty much exclusively mained ever since it came out. But I wanted to give Wishender a chance, so I was kind of playing around with this game here. One of the things I like about Wishender is you don't necessarily have to use Oathkeepers with it. Wishender, regardless of which point you release the arrow at, is going to kill somebody in 2 body shots no matter what, just because of the broadhead perk. It's got a lot of high upfront burst damage. And it doesn't rely on having to get the full perfect draw like Le Monarch does, because if you're using Le Monarch, you want to get the poison as often as possible. And on that note, if you're using Le Monarch and you're not using Oathkeepers, you're hurting yourself. Now, there's going to be plenty of people that are going to claim, oh, I'm amazing, I can hit those shots all day long with it, I can come to full draw, I've got no issues timing it, that's great. I have been using Le Monarch exclusively with Oathkeepers ever since I got Oathkeepers, which was shortly after Le Monarch, and you're hurting yourself if you're not using them. And you're lying to yourself if you're thinking that you're going to do great without it. The consistency that is offered by using those and always having that poison available in Crucible is absolutely paramount to that bow. Also, on that same note, with Oathkeepers and other bows, Oathkeepers are great because they allow you to indefinitely hold your charge and pre-aim and get ready for the first instance of the fight. And it takes away a big chunk of your TTK, which bows already have an incredibly high TTK as they're meant to be peak shotting weapons. So missing out on that first little chunk of time just because you're having to hold down the draw or trying to pre-charge, you're not using a fusion rifle. So don't treat it like a fusion rifle. You should take every advantage you can get. Now currently, and this is going to trigger some people, but it's just a fact, hunters have the advantage when it comes to using bows, and that's solely because of Oathkeepers. Oathkeepers allows you as a hunter to be a lot more consistent than the other classes because you don't have to worry about that first draw as much. You don't have to try to pre-charge like you're using a fusion rifle or something like that. Time it coming around the corner, you can just be ready on that first draw, and then you've already half-healthed your first target, and you can engage from there, pop into cover, pop back out, boom, do what you need to do. We all know the tempo of using Oathkeepers with a bow. Now, I hate Oathkeepers. I wish they didn't exist. I wish things were a little bit more level between the classes, but as a hunter, I feel heavily inclined to use them whenever I'm using a bow, just because they do offer a much higher level of consistency. Even though I would much rather be using Stompies, because as a hunter I love Stompies. They're a great exotic, and to me they feel a lot more usable in a wide range than just Oathkeepers. Because obviously all Oathkeepers does is allow you to hold an arrow as long as you want. The issue here is that we couldn't just delete Oathkeepers. You can't get rid of them. Because of the perfect draw mechanics and the way that the game operates with bows, it would be very hard to just give permanent full draw to everybody and then find something else for Oathkeepers to do. I mean, I guess the only thing they would be able to do is just make it so that you keep those perfect draw perks, like I said, but then it just seems like a little weak and it's kind of a waste of an exotic. And by the way, this is the part where I get super frustrated trying to use Wish Ender because it's just not really fun for me. So I start trying some other things. Started trying out a lightweight bow, which lightweight bows really don't feel that great. They feel completely pointless to the heavier weight bows just because they don't have nearly as much damage, and you're required to get headshots on the less accurate archetype of bows. So they seem very counterintuitive. And again, to reiterate, I have almost exclusively used Le Monarch since I don't know when. And as such, I'm not really used to any other kind of bow. I'm decent with them, and I do well enough, but Le Monarch is just a cut above the rest of the bows. And as you can see here, that lasted a whole 2 seconds, because now I'm swapping to my scout rifle here. My final thought on bows here, and this is the big one, this is for all the marbles. This is what I think would fix bows in PvP. Not that they're necessarily broken, but it would make them feel a little bit more viable and competitive with the other primary weapons in the game. They need a faster draw time across the board. They don't need to have a meta draw time. We don't need to have bows able to draw and release arrows, 2 arrows in 0.8 seconds. That would be overpowered. It would basically just be a more powerful version of the 120 hand cannon meta that we've got going on right now, and that would be just, we don't want to go in that direction at all. However, something like 1.3 seconds for our heavier bows, and maybe like a 1.2, 1.15, something like that for the lightweight bows, just to give them some reason to use them, I think that would be a lot better. Give them the sidearm treatment. Don't make it so that they're just completely overpowered, but make them incredibly consistent. I mean, look at sidearms. Sidearms do not have the fastest time to kill in the game at all, but they have a very consistent time to kill because it's easy to achieve. That's kind of one of the beautiful things about bows, is they're so accurate, and for most of them you only have to hit body shots, that they can be very consistent. They just take too long to get to that point, so in a straight up firefight they have no chance. So that's it. Bows just need a little bit more consistency. Not more power, we don't want them broken. I don't want them to, be nerfed back and forth. Just a little bit faster draw speed so they can be a bit more consistent when fighting and dueling other primaries. Now on to scout rifles, and for the remainder of this video, all you're going to see me using is Trusty, because it's absolutely hands down my favorite scout rifle in the game right now. Trusty is, in my opinion, the best scout rifle in the game right now, far and away. The only other scout rifle that comes close to it is going to be Symmetry, and that's because they share the same archetype. Right now, those 260 RPM scouts have the most consistent time to kill, and they feel the most consistent overall in the Crucible. They're a bit snappier, and honestly, they're kind of just like using a long-range auto rifle. The next best scout after these two is going to be the Mida Multi-Tool, of course, because the Mida has such inherently high aim assist and stats overall that it basically just hands you free headshots, and it's very good at dueling in general. I mean, hey, in D1 the Mida was absolutely my favorite scout, but it just doesn't feel as consistent as these 260 RPM scouts, and I hope that we're going to be getting more coming soon. And by the way, just as kind of a little aside here, I don't know if you guys have already noticed this or not, but this match is absolutely chock full of Fellwinter's shotgun Knave just rushing me down. Bungie really needs to take a look at our special weapons in general, or just the entire special ammo economy in Crucible. It's a special weapon. Look at, one of their past games, Halo, where the snipers and shotguns had limited ammo, and there typically wasn't more than 1 or 2 on the map at a time, and they only spawned here or there. People should not be able to just main one-shot weapons. I think that's definitely a problem, but I won't get into that with this video. That's a rant for another video. Back to scout rifles. There's really not a lot that can be done with them without turning them into completely overpowered weapons. I mean, they already have decent time to kill, and they can do it at just about any range possible. The real reason that they feel so clunky is going to have to do with the sights on most of them. And that's another reason why Trusty feels so amazing. The sights are clean, there's really not that much zoom to it, it's a very open sight, and that's why Trusty feels so good. And that's why it feels better than Symmetry, which has a little bit more of a scope style sight on it. Now, with the nerf upcoming to the 120 hand cannons, that is going to help out scout rifles just a little bit, since those hand cannons are completely encroaching on our territory. But it's not really going to solve the problem. Pulse rifles are also easily in that category of long-range fights in the Crucible with scouts, because there aren't really super long ranges. The range at which a scout is going to overtake a pulse is just not found on most of our maps, and that's because they're just designed to be small and kind of close quarters. We used to have some long-range maps, you know, Equinox, Vostok, things like that, but those were taken out. They were just kind of conveniently sunsetted, even though I'm pretty sure Vostok was on Earth, which wasn't a sunset location. The Crucible map sunsetting had nothing to do with the locations whatsoever. I think they were entirely using it as an excuse to get rid of those long-range maps. And I think that's because they're trying to promote a more aggressive playstyle, and that's because that's what a lot of the streamers use. A lot of the big streamers really, you know, what do you want to see? Do you want to see somebody like me sitting in the back of the map sniping with a scout? Or are you going to be more impressed watching some guy slide around and jumping around, nailing people with a hand cannon and a shotgun CQC? Most of you are probably going to say it's more interesting to see the hand cannon guy going in, but me, that's just not my playstyle. I like the marksman playstyle. You know, I don't like to rush in and just, you know, begging people to kill me by shoving my face in front of their Felwinters. But, like I said, I'm in the minority. I think the game definitely promotes a fairly aggressive playstyle, and that's kind of a trend that's been going with a lot of FPS games lately. They've really been shying away from allowing sniper-type weapons or any kind of long-range fights to be the meta because I guess that's more boring. People seem to prefer being a lot more aggressive these days. And on that note, my advice to you other scout mains out there, just use Trusty or Symmetry. Stick to the 260 RPM scouts. They're able to be used the most aggressively out of any of the archetypes. The other scout rifles are just not very usable. If you want to branch out and have some kind of middle ground where you've still got a little bit of the longer range capabilities, even though, I mean, it's a scout rifle, they still have range. But if you're wanting something that still feels more like a scout rather than just a long range auto rifle, go for the Mida. The Mida is going to be your best friend. It's very well rounded and it is still very usable, and at times can feel overpowered in the Crucible. But if you just want to use the best scout rifle you can and at least feel semi-sort of meta, use a 260 RPM scout. Me personally, I'm hoping that sometime soon, maybe even next season, we're going to get a replacement to Randy's throwing knife. I would love to have a random roll scout rifle in the kinetic slot that's 260 RPM. Fingers crossed it could also have Vorpal on it because, my goodness, that would be an amazing scout rifle to use in Crucible. But as far as what I think could help improve scouts in Crucible, just reduce their zoom a little bit. That's really the only thing I can think of to do to them that hasn't already been done that would make them feel a little bit better without completely breaking them and making it so that we're just in dominant scout meta all over again, like we were back in D1. We are clearly not going to be having any long-range maps anymore, so they just need to dial the zoom back a little bit, and that'll make scouts feel a little more viable and usable versus other primaries in the Crucible. At least I think so. And with that, that wraps up my thoughts on bows and scouts and their current state in the PvP meta. If you guys have stuck around this far and not gotten tired of hearing me talking, thanks for watching. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next one, and I hope y'all have a wonderful evening.